Today, we'll be debating the issue of policing protests. Police are facing criticism after activists were able to stage a protest on the M25 yesterday, the second one this week. The activists sat on the road, causing huge queues of traffic, with their tactics being blamed for a serious crash.
So today we're asking, should police be tougher on disruptive protests?
But it's not just our guests we want to hear from. Join the debate with your view. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us @gbnews.
Now, police have been coming under fire over their handling of protests on the M25 this week. Activists from Insulate Britain caused traffic chaos on the motorway by sitting on the road.
Their tactics are even being blamed for a serious crash that took place yesterday, which led to a woman in her 50s being airlifted to hospital with serious injuries.
It's certainly not the first time in recent memory we've seen demonstrators turn to disruptive protest methods in a bid to get their point across.
Groups like Extinction Rebellion have been in the spotlight more and more in recent times for their often highly disruptive demonstration tactics. And they've previously superglued themselves to roads and buildings, blockading newspaper printing presses and smashing windows, among other things.
Now joining us to debate this is Zoe Cohen, a volunteer for Insulate Britain, the group behind the M25 protest this week. Hi Zoe, thank you for your time today. Your protest, the aims of your protests and what you are trying to achieve, I think most people would say are laudable and admirable and would support. It's the methods. Tell us why you take the methods that you do.
Well, hi Dorian, hi Liam, good to meet you. It's very clear really, isn't it? I mean, ordinary people don't get to talk about really important issues like Code Red for Humanity and the fact that we need our homes insulated to save emissions, create jobs and save lives from winter fuel poverty. We don't get to talk about this stuff unless we do drastic things like sit on the road, unfortunately.
Really, Zoe? I mean, we talk about climate change issues all the time. My kids at school, they come home, their homework's all about climate change and insulating homes, and TV companies are appointing climate change correspondents. I mean, it's a huge, huge debate that we're having. Why do you have to upset so many people who may otherwise support you, and often do, by making it impossible for them to go about their daily business?
You make some really important points, Liam. You know, the kids know, don't they? They're learning about some of this stuff in school, not enough, but some of it. But alas, it's all talk and it's all words and no action. The emissions are going up and up, and this government aren't doing the most obvious practical things, you know, retrofit homes of this country, save lives from fuel poverty and people dying in the winter because they can't afford to heat their homes, create hundreds of thousands of great jobs for people of this country, protect life, and also bang, you know, pound for pound, it's the best way to reduce our emissions. It's such a no-brainer. Why aren't they doing it?
Is there a danger, though, Zoe, that you might aim at people who support your campaign, who might even get involved with the campaign, but don't want to sit in the road to make their point?
It's such a good point, isn't it, Gloria? We don't know what else to do, Gloria, honestly. People that, you know, I'm an ordinary mum. We're all ordinary citizens from, you know, you've seen like elderly vicars, young bricklayers, ordinary people from across different parts of society. And we're desperate because we're in a code red for humanity. You know, Sir David King, the chief scientific advisor, former advisor to the UK government, says in the next 3 or 4 years, what governments do determine the future of humanity for thousands of years to come. It's so big and so serious. And unfortunately, we hate disrupting people. It's awful. But governments don't take action without us doing this. And yeah, it's dreadful. And I feel awful about it. But we really have no choice. We really have no choice.
Okay, with the police, Zoe, do you warn them that you're going to block the London's huge orbital road before you actually do it?
It's a really good question, Liam, and I honestly don't fully know the answer to that. I'm not involved in those aspects. I believe there is some police liaison I don't know the detail. I'm sorry, I can't give you the detail on that. But, we do take care to be committed to being peaceful and committed to looking after ourselves and each other and the people that very, very sadly and reluctantly we are disrupting.
What's the relationship like when you're on your protest? There's obviously a police presence. How does that relationship work or not?
I really appreciate the fact that you're asking this question, Gloria, but it makes me really, really sad that we're not talking about the bigger story. This small bunch of ordinary people, is not really the story. The story is that our government are being really reckless with the safety and security of families in this country. We have 8,500 deaths from fuel poverty last year alone, and we're getting heat deaths now because of the increasing heat waves that we're experiencing. This is the real story, and the fact that the government's not doing enough to actually reduce emissions. It's talk and no action, Gloria. That's the important story here.
It is an important story, Zoe, but with all respect, what we're focusing on today, amidst a surfeit of coverage about climate change, frankly, ahead of the COP26 summit, where it will absolutely dominate the news. What we're talking about today is the fact that, a middle-aged woman was airlifted to hospital because of what some protesters did, and we're trying very politely to give you the chance to say how you feel about the blowback from your protests and to question whether or not it wouldn't be better to, launch an Insulate Britain political party and stand in local elections.
Yeah, well, obviously, any accident on any motorway in the country is a tragedy. And I understand that there's an investigation ongoing into that accident by the police, and we don't know the outcome of that yet. So we don't know that there's any connection. And at the same time, obviously, our thoughts are with this lady and her friends and family, of course. We don't know there's any connection. And we do take these things incredibly, incredibly seriously. I think you're talking about COP26. I think, what I would want to say there, Liam, is the clue's in the title, isn't it? It's the 26th COP, which stands for Conference of the Parties, this big global conference. It's the 26th one. So it's taken over 26 years to happen, and emissions have gone up exponentially every time. It's failing. The system is failing us. It's failing our young children. It's failing the families of this country as well. And that's what we do. That's what we're highlighting. The system is failing, and the government's failing to do the most straightforward thing. The Committee on Climate Change says they've been asking for years for the government to get on and insulate and retrofit our homes because they're 20% of the emissions of this country. And the government just aren't doing it. So the protest is really important. And you said about starting a political party. Well, I'm pretty old. I'm a mum, and I voted every time I can since I've been 18 because I think voting is really important. It's our responsibility to vote. Women protested to get us the vote, didn't they? And I take that really seriously. And I voted in every election since I was 18. But do you know what? Since I've become seriously aware of the emergency that we're in, there's never been a box on that ballot paper to tick to say take the real action on climate change. There's never been a box to tick for that. It's never been properly addressed by the government. So this is where we are. And unfortunately, ordinary people have to do these things to be heard because the people in power don't listen otherwise.
OK, Zoe Cohen there from Extinction Rebellion. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, and we'll welcome you back another time to have your say.
Now, joining us to debate this today is Craig McKinley, the Conservative MP for South Thanet. Hi, Craig. Oh, I can see two guests there. We have Craig McKinley and Sir. and Chris Phillips, the former Metropolitan Police detective. We are grateful to you both for your time. Craig, Zoe there, she said, they hate to disrupt people's lives. They wish the government would listen. It's the 26th climate change conference. Emissions keep going up. They feel that it's such an emergency that they have no option but to take the measures and protest in the way and disruptive way that they do. Craig, what do you say to that?
Well, I always admire people who've got passion for the things that they believe in. And we're all very lucky to live in a country where you can actually have your say in a free way, free speech. You can set up whatever website you like and have your say. But what they've been doing, Insulate Britain, I'm afraid it's just completely and wholly unacceptable. Well, number one, a lot of their demands are already being met. We've had a multitude of green homes grants and similar, and there's more around the corner. So, a lot of their demands about insulating older homes is being met. Now, they worry about fuel poverty, and I very much worry about fuel poverty. And the sad fact is this sort of dash that we're on of, importing interconnected electricity, diminishing our own gas supplies and relying on supplies from abroad, well, that's going to be a sure way of actually increasing fuel poverty. But that's an argument for another day. But what they've been doing the last couple of days, it's wholly unacceptable. I mean, do they not worry about those the people who have perhaps missed hospital appointments? They've got businesses to run, the businesses that actually fuel the economy, pay the taxes, so that we live in a very civilized and decent country. So I'm afraid I've got no sympathy for their methods that they used. No surprise that they've used it on the main arterial road for the southeast, which everybody has to use. I mean, living in Kent, without the M25 running, we're literally on an island. I mean, how many millions were lost yesterday in lost business and total aggravation for people? There are other ways of protesting, and I would actually say they're getting their way slowly. I may not agree entirely with some of the aims of this government on its net zero plans. I mean, far from agree with them, actually. I think there's more elegant ways of doing it. But really, broadly, they're getting their way because of a lot of what they've been campaigning for years is being done. Now, I don't.
Craig, sorry. Let me just bring in Chris Phillips, if I may. Sorry, we'll come back to you. So Chris Phillips is waiting patiently, former Detective Chief Inspector in the Met. Chris, if I may, we've seen pictures recently of police taking the knee in the face of violent protest. We've seen police standing by as people take chisels and hammers to the windows of buildings of law-abiding companies in the City of London. Sometimes, do you think the police are a bit too soft?
Well, I think you get the policing a society deserves, and what we've done in this country is effectively tie the hands of the police officers through legislation in a way that stops them dealing with these types of issues, as we have done over the last 50, 60 years in the UK. We've had legislation that's basically tied the hands of the officers. And really, I understand. I mean, pretty much every police officer that I know, either retired or serving, would be disappointed by what they saw, certainly most recently on the motorway. However, you also have to understand about the High Court and the legislation that they have to work to, and the fact that people have got the right, because the High Court have told us to, that people can demonstrate on highways, and the police have to work for that. So, we're in grave danger of over-liberalising our legislation, over-liberalising our police in a way that actually makes individuals fight back. And I think if we get to that stage, we're in a very dangerous situation, because as we saw, many people were very, very upset the other day by that demonstration. People were pulling them off the road. And we will get that kind of attitude if the police aren't seen to be doing what the majority of police believe they should be doing. But you do have to look at the legislators for this to make sure we got the legislation in place that the police can do their job.
What do you mean? Sorry, Chris, I'm going to stick with you. What do you mean that laws prevent you policing a protest? I'm sceptical, sorry.
You're sceptical? Well, you're probably because you're not aware of High Court rulings
Please explain to me.
Taken place. The police have actually been told that people can demonstrate on the road, and that there is a right to do that. And if you look at the back cases, the police have to work to that, and they have to work to the law, and the law's there, so they have to follow it.
Craig, what do you think of that? Do you think the police? I mean, you obviously believe in the right to protest. You said that clearly, and I know you believe that anyway. But do you think the police are hamstrung by the law as it stands and recent High Court rulings when they have to try and police what's inevitably a difficult, emotionally highly charged situation like a very disruptive protest?
No, I have a lot of sympathy for what Chris has just said. I mean, policing is by consent in this country, and obviously there is a route by which you police difficult instances. You ask nicely, you ask a bit more nicely, you then sort of do you go up the ladder until you try and achieve what you want to do. You don't go to the top of the ladder first, and I understand that type of policing, and I think generally that's quite successful. But we don't have a lack of legislation. I mean, in advance of this show, I used to be a magistrate actually for 12 years. I'm not anymore. I don't have the time. But I looked through the legislation that exists. I mean, let me just read these through. You've got the Section 137 of the Highways Act 1980. To stop the obstruction of the highway. You've got the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994 against aggravated trespass. You've got Section 89 of the Police Act 1996, and that's the classic one of obstructing a police officer in doing his duties. You've got all the common law breach of the peace is still on the statute book. You've got Section 12 of the Public Order Act 1986, which can be used if there's serious disruption to the life of the community. You've got the Criminal Damage Act 1971. I mean, it's not as if we haven't got a lack of legislation. We're obviously considering the Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill in Parliament at the moment, which we all hope will allow some more robust measures for this, intentionally obstructive type of behaviour, which is just not acceptable. As I say, I like a good protest. I've been on a few myself, but I've done it in a reasonable way. So that it doesn't upset other people. And I think that is the right way of doing things. No one's going to stop you from doing that. And, Zoe, what a lovely woman with the passion that she brought to this debate. But, I would recommend she tried to do those activities of the periphery around Beijing. I don't think she'd have a good reception by the authorities over there. But, let's be honest, that is where the CO2 issues are arising. They're not in the UK. We've been on a very good trajectory for a very long time, and we've got the technology to make it even better, and indeed insulate Britain with a load of grants. So, frankly, they're looking in the wrong place. But I have sympathy with the police. We saw it a lot last year with the events on the Edward Colston statue in where was it, in Bristol?
Bristol, yeah.
And a lot of these other issues. I would rather we saw some heavier policing earlier on to say, I'm sorry, the public deserve to get on their way doing what they want to do. An Extinction Rebellion cost policing £50 million last year, money and police time that I think would be better served in a capital that has quite enough crime issues as it is.
Can I just come in on?
Yes, please do.
I don't disagree with any of that, but the trouble is the legislation is not there that deals with this. A criminal justice system, no one fears anymore getting arrested. No one fears the sentence that they're going to get in a court. We've got terrorists being let out halfway through their sentences, still radicalised, walking the streets of the UK. This is a root and branch issue. It's a criminal justice system that's not doing its job, that it's become over-liberalised. We've got judges that are making ridiculous decisions. We've got the court system. We've got people being released who are still a danger to the public. And no one's scared of getting arrested again. And the reason that Extinction Rebellion was able to cause the amount of problems that they did in London was the fact that they were being arrested, and because of the legislation, they were being released and coming back out onto the streets. And then when they got to court, they were let off or given a very small fine, which does not stop them doing it again.
Chris, and Craig, but I'll put this point to Chris. So you are both making the argument that it is difficult because of various laws and legislation to properly police our countries and our communities and our protests. The peaceful Sarah Everard vigil and the pictures that emerged of that, with women on the floor being pinned with their hands on their backs, that did not look like the police did not have the power to intervene in that peaceful protest. Tell me I'm wrong.
Can I? That is absolutely a ridiculous statement. That if you actually look into what happened on that demonstration, on that what was supposedly a peaceful demonstration, it wasn't peaceful for the few people that decided to cause a problem. The vast majority of people didn't, and things changed. And actually, it's been found that the police acted properly in that demonstration. And this is one of the issues with the media. You blow up the same police officers who are being effectively said told that they're not doing their job when they try to peacefully deal with a demonstration on the motorway, the media 10 minutes later will be criticising them for making a completely lawful stop and search on someone in the street. And social media doesn't help, but the mainstream media doesn't help as well.
Chris, you have to keep coming on GB News and tell us we're wrong. That's what debate is all about, and there's plenty of debate on this channel. I would say so. Anyway, Chris Phillip there, a former Detective Chief Inspector of the Metropolitan Police. Thanks a lot for joining us. And Craig McKinley, of course, MP for South Thanet. A good debate, and the debate goes on.